If I ask you to marry me. Yep. City Boys. Yeah, a pretty simple song, as you can probably see. Not a lot of instruments, rows, files, tracks. Um, yeah, so first of all, structurally, this song is just A, B, A, B, A, B, C. Now I'll go through later what those guitar parts are, but basically they're just fairly simple, I think. Drums are pretty easy. If I ask you to marry me. Yeah, so in the mix. Um, if I turn all these off, turn the insets off. Yeah, I don't mind that preamp. It gives a bit of crunch. This UAD preamp. Mixed drums is doing all the heavy lifting. Yeah, but you can see I've dropped the level completely of the kick, the low end, even though it's still really in there, because I think the full text even pushing it up more, and then that just warmer upper up. I've cranked the overdrive in these mids and highs. There's no reverb or anything coming here. That's dry can be. I've even turned up the mid a couple of dB. I think for me, it gives me that Blur Song 2 kind of vibe, that kind of crunchy, in a room, guy playing kind of vibe. I hope it's got that vibe anyway. It did have tambourine. I turned the tambourine off, so I just wasn't adding anything, doing anything. Yeah, I like the bass too, actually. If I turn the insets off on it's the Cerberus bass amp I use all the time on the Fed thing. It's just how I do what I do. It's got a compressor, which I don't use a compressor in here much. I tend to compress it afterwards. Otherwise, just reverb machines and soothe. They don't seem to do much, but they do something. Yeah, so that's the bass sound. That's the bass in the C parts. The C parts are two chords, the G to F, I think. So, yeah, and then the bass. Switch those down. This guitar did initially. This guitar was in the whole thing, but I thought it needed a bit of variation, so so this is the bit that I had first. So that's the Gibson, the ES345. It's just through my Fender Deluxe Reverb. It's got the attenuator on. It's just an overdriven guitar. Like, I really do like the attenuator. I like it much more than pedals or any of the amp sims and stuff. You might have just seen the level on the telly just drop. I've automated it so that it drops way down in the first half of the A section, the first half of the verse, and then it will come back up when the other guitar comes in. They're just panned 50% left and right, the two of them. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. And then it disappears for the verse, chorus, or refrain. That's just double the bass, by the way. Yeah, and then in terms of sounds, that the Gibson's clean. I use the Guitar Studio for the telly. I kind of like it. I think it's a Fox No, enigmatic. It's a double. There's not much going on in here. Is this play off? It's off. I don't know why it has a spring reverb before the amp section, but it does. And then it's got a little bit of this tape echo on it. Yeah, it was a preset, I think. I just like the sound of it. Yeah, you can hear the spring reverb just in there, just filling it out. Yep, and then this one, I'll just show this first. So that's the Marshall playing. And then I added this weirdly did tempo sync it, which is why I think it sounds much better. Yeah, so I really like the Galaxy techno. That's it for the tracks. If we go through the vocals, the lyrics I just made up one morning, basically. Normally my process is I play guitar on the couch to write what would have been the Gibson part, this bit. Solid A. So I'll write this bit on the couch. I'll come downstairs and do some sort of drum loop, right? So I'll basically play that guitar part a few times through, then tap out the tempo and get a tempo, and then do some drums, right? And it might just be this little section for a loop, which is I think where this one started. And then I'll play the guitar along with that drum. So I just have essentially two tracks at that point. I'll either come up then with a vocal or a lead guitar bit. In this one, I think it was the lead guitar bit first because it doesn't tie itself around the vocal. If I'd made up the lead guitar bit after the vocals, it would have been like, if I ask you to marry me, la 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 la, and I wouldn't have that. They wouldn't be over the top of each other. But that's panned left and right, so it doesn't. This is automated, as I said before. It's fine. It doesn't get in the way, I don't think. And then if I asked you to marry me, what would you say? I can wait until tomorrow or until it's too late. Yeah, which was just a throwaway thing, but I actually really like it now. The City Boy thing is, so in Japan, a lot of my songs have stuff about Japan. I don't know why. The City Boys were in the 50s in Japan, and they dressed like prep schools from America. So they wore like varsity jackets and khaki pants and polo shirts and stuff like that. Yeah, so they were the City Boys, and they basically hung out in Ginza, so in the city in Tokyo. And they had a magazine called Popeye, and the Popeye magazine kept going through to I don't even know if it's still going now, but in the kind of 80s and 90s, the City Boy thing morphed into that Japanese fashion thing where everything's kind of oversized and like the giant khaki pants and all that sort of stuff. And so it's its own special style. It didn't. I had the phrase "City Boys" written down in my lyric book. It doesn't mean anything in the context of this song. It's just I thought it was a cool phrase. The next verse was I could go and buy some shoes, trying to forget about you. That's just a very obvious throwaway line, but it has I like it. I think it has a certain sort of depth to it because when you see couples and they break up, not always, but often, like they'll lose 10 kilos and they'll get a new wardrobe full of outfits and, lift their game a little bit, I guess. And so I thought this is one of those things where, the protagonist of the song has um, not not asked his partner, her partner, whatever, to get married. And then I thought, well, they've broken up now, so he's gone to buy new shoes to forget about you. And then I don't think I'm strong enough is just what came to my brain after that for no real reason. For no real reason. Um, yeah. So there's that. Then, yeah, look at all those city boys. And now the Harajuku YouTube, the kids are drunk at 3 a.m., passed out in the gutters, neon lights are flickering. I watched a YouTube video about a guy. There was a guy who interviews kids in Harajuku at 3 a.m. and they're drunk and they're passed out. And, Japan. Japan's kind of weird, right? You have this impression of Japan as being, well, a couple of things, really prim and proper and polite and all that sort of stuff. You also have this impression of Japan that it's all like robots and neon lights and stuff like that, but that's not actually really true. It's a bit ramshackle in 90% of the country. But anyway, yeah. So Japan, they are polite and they are nice, and I love Japan, but they do get really drunk, and once they're drunk, all of those social things kind of disappear a little bit. So you will find them blind drunk, passed out, throwing up in the gutter kind of thing, but they'd be just as likely to wake up the next morning and clean up after themselves and pick up all the cans. And it's a funny place. Anyway, so that's that line. And then I just decided not to sing over the end part. I just let it go. And that's the words. They don't mean so much. They kind of tie together. The Harajuku verse doesn't really have anything to do with the first two. It came later, so one day I might have written this, and 2 days later I wrote this one, and it just fits. Yeah. Okay. So we'll break here. I'll show you how to play it on the guitar. All right.